What's going on, guys? Aero here, and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video, I want to talk to you guys more about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and the possibility of this being the potential last Xenoblade game. Now this is a video that I've wanted to make for a while, and it's definitely a topic that I've seen a lot of discussion about on if Xenoblade Chronicles 3 could really be kind of the last game that kind of just wraps everything up, or if there could still be like more games and kind of just the direction that they could go after. Now real quick before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that I am going to be streaming Xenoblade Chronicles 3 over on my Twitch, and right now we're actually playing through all the Xenoblade games in preparation for Xenoblade 3, and we always have some pretty chill streams and have a good time, so if you ever want to come and just hang out with us, then definitely consider following me down below from the link in the description or the pinned comment. It's twitch.tv/actualaero, and I hope to see you guys there. Alright, so the first thing that I feel like we should talk about is why do people think that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is potentially going to be like the last Xenoblade game? What's the reason that people are even believing that? Now in order to understand this, we need to go back to the summer of last year when the very first leak came out about Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and it was actually from Melia's voice actress herself, Jenna Coleman. So she basically said that there was another Xenoblade game in development, and since then we got a big article claiming that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is actually in development, and the very interesting thing was kind of the terminology that they used, where they said here in the article, the ending of the trilogy takes place in the far-flung future with a few returning characters who have long outlived their human counterparts from both Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now of course, at the time when this article came out, everybody was saying that this is too good to be true, there's no way that this is real, but of course earlier this year in that February Nintendo Direct, Nintendo finally revealed Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and since then, once we got new trailers about the game, pretty much more and more information from this article just started to end up being true, and at this point now, this article is pretty much exactly like spot on with everything that we know so far about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. They even mentioned that the game is accounting for both playable characters and enemies and trying to have as many character models on screen, and even that turned out to be true. As we can see in the gameplay, you basically take 7 characters into combat with you, so a lot of it has turned out to be exactly true, and that's why when it does say here in the article that this is the ending of the trilogy, it does kind of imply that this would be like the big conclusive game that will kind of wrap up the Xenoblade trilogy of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and then Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now in terms of other potential reasons why people believe that Xenoblade 3 could be the ending to the trilogy, is if we take a look at the artwork for the DLC, we can literally see all of the swords here together. We got the Monado EX from Xenoblade Chronicles 1, we got the Aegis sword from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and then of course the brand new sword that Noah uses inside of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. It really kind of just seems like this is going to be like the big culmination, and they're putting everything from all of the games together inside of this game. I just feel like even if they do like a Xenoblade Chronicles 4 after, and then have like a new sword and try to have a DLC with that, it's not going to hit as hard as what they're doing already now, and they would have already done it once if it does happen in the future. So that's why it really kind of just feels like this is going to be kind of like the big climactic finisher, and it's really going to just combine everything from all of the games. Also, the unique monster theme for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is literally named You Will Know Our Names Finale. Now, it could be possible that we're just looking too into this, but the fact that it's literally called finales are usually like the last kind of part of a musical performance or like the climactic finisher, so the fact that it's called finale kind of implies to me that there isn't going to be any more like You Will Know Our Names or anything like that in the future. It kind of feels like this is kind of the last You Will Know Our Names that's going to be kind of wrapping up everything together here. Now, like I said, it's possible that we could just be looking too into this, but I do feel like if there were going to be more of them, then they would have kind of called this like You Will Remember Our Names or something else, because the fact that they're calling this like a finale now, and then if they do like a Xenoblade 4 where they have something like this again and they just call it You Will Remember Our Names, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And so this is just going to be a discussion video talking about the options that Monolithsoft does have if Xenoblade Chronicles 3 really is going to be the ending to the trilogy. What other games could they focus on after? What other things could they do if there's going to be a Xenoblade Chronicles 4? I kind of just want to give you guys all the possibilities, and then you guys can comment down below and let me know which one you guys would like to see the most, what direction you think they should go, because I do think that this is a very interesting topic. So the first thing that I feel like we should talk about is just the easiest option that they have, and honestly the best thing that they can do after Xenoblade 3 is to just focus on Xenoblade X. Now, I always see the Elma profile pics and Xenoblade X fans in my comment section, and I really do kind of feel bad every time when I skip Xenoblade X when I'm talking about Xenoblade, and I wish I could talk more about it, but unfortunately I just never got the chance to play Xenoblade X, and that's why I feel like a lot of people are also in the same boat as me, which is why bringing over Xenoblade X to the Nintendo Switch, and really just having Monolithsoft focus all of their energy in terms of Xenoblade into Xenoblade X after they're done everything with Xenoblade 3 would make the most sense. So of course they could start with Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, bring that game over from the Wii U and finally give people a chance to play it. The game was already made in HD for the Wii U anyway, so I feel like they would just need to do some quality of life updates and things like that. They can bring that game over, finally make it available on the Nintendo Switch, and from what I've been told, Xenoblade Chronicles X apparently ends on a pretty big cliffhanger, which definitely means that there's more to be told in terms of like that story and kind of the design that they've created for that world, so I definitely do think that it's possible that they can make a sequel to that game and even more games to follow along the Xenoblade X story. So honestly, if they start focusing on Xenoblade X, they could just make that into its own new trilogy, where you get like Xenoblade Chronicles X, Xenoblade Chronicles Y, and then Xenoblade Chronicles Z. There you go, that's like an entire new decade of Xenoblade games for you right there, so I feel like this would definitely be the easiest option, is after Xenoblade 3, they pretty much kind of take a break from the numbered Xenoblade games and put all their energy for the next couple of years into just making a lot of stuff with Xenoblade X. But now let's talk about what they could do with the numbered Xenoblade games if they do plan on making them continue. Now there's a term that a lot of Xenoblade fans like to use when talking about the numbered Xenoblade games, and that is the Klaus Saga. Now the term Klaus Saga was actually created by my favorite Xenoblade YouTuber K Jewelers. If you guys don't know who this person is, definitely check out his channel because he's got a bunch of really good videos about Xenoblade, but he basically created this term Klaus Saga when referring to Xenoblade 1, Xenoblade 2, and Xenoblade 3. And the reason why it's called the Klaus Saga is because this one person, Professor Klaus, is the one who's responsible for creating all these universes and the connections between all of these games. And so one of the things that I've heard a lot of people say is that Xenoblade 3 is going to be the ending to the Klaus Saga, where it's basically going to wrap up everything with Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2, but we're still going to be getting more Xenoblade games after. It's kind of like how Avengers Endgame was the ending to the Infinity Stone saga, where you had all these movies about all of these stones for so many years, and then Avengers Endgame was finally like that big, climactic, conclusive ending to everything about all of the stones and all of the movies that we've had throughout the years. But of course, that wasn't the ending for the MCU, as we're currently in Phase 4 right now with so many different movies and shows, so it wasn't the end of the MCU, but it was like that big finale, conclusive type of moment, which is what Xenoblade 3 could potentially be. And so that brings us to the topic of Xenoblade Chronicles 4. So this would be like Xenoblade Chronicles 4 being the start of a completely new arc with a new character, a new universe, and it's going to have nothing to do with Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3. So I feel like this could be a direction that they could go in. That way they could still keep having more numbered Xenoblade games. However, I do think that it could be a little bit confusing. Even if it has nothing to do with Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3, just somebody going into the store and seeing Xenoblade Chronicles 4, it would kind of be in their head that they would need to play Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 in order to play that game, even if that is the start of a new arc, so that's why I feel like it would just kind of confuse more people. And that's also something that I don't want with Xenoblade, where it becomes really kind of hard for people to know exactly where to start playing these games. Like right now it's really easy. You've got Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. If you like that, then play Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And then if you like that, you've got Xenoblade Chronicles 3 coming. But I feel like if they start adding new arcs and different numbers and things like that, it's going to get really kind of confusing for people. Like one of the RPG series that I eventually want to get into are the Trails games, but looking online at exactly where's the best spot to start those games, I keep finding so many mixed opinions. Some people saying you have to start at the very first one with Trails in the Sky, some people saying it's okay to start at Trails of Cold Steel, so I just feel like I really don't want Xenoblade to become like that, where it becomes kind of really complicated for people to know where exactly they can jump in, and where like the start of new arcs happen and things like that, so that's why I feel like they should really kind of be careful with what they decide to do after Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And that's why one of the possibilities that a lot of people have talked about is the idea for a new Xeno series. And so that's also a topic that I've seen a lot of people talking about. Of course, Xeno as a series is split up into different branches. You've got Xenogears, Xenosaga, Xenoblade, and so a lot of people think that it could be possible that after Xenoblade 3, if it really is like that big conclusive game and ends everything and kind of wraps everything up with the Xenoblade games, they can make their own kind of like story-driven main type of Xeno series again and have it be under a new name and call it something else like, I don't know, Xenosword, Xenotail, or whatever they call it, but that way it can differentiate itself from the other Xeno games. And by doing that, a new series would become a great entry point for people to get into the Xeno games. They could start with like Xenotail and then have like Xenotail 2 and Xenotail 3 or whatever. So that could be like its own new thing. But because of that, it would be different from like Xenoblade and Xenosaga and all of that. So that way you won't have to worry about having to know everything from those games. And of course, with the way that Monolith works, there's probably going to be like little references to each of those games inside of the new one, but it would be like its own self-contained brand new game. And so that would be really good because it would be a good entry point for people to get into the Xeno games. And even after that, if people really enjoy like the new one, then a lot of people can say like, hey, did you guys know that they actually made this amazing trilogy called Xenoblade? You can definitely go and check that out. There's Xenoblade 1, Xenoblade 2, and Xenoblade 3. And this is basically like what everyone does with Xenosaga right now, where a lot of the Xenoblade fans who've played those games go back and play that game because they know that that's also another Xeno trilogy, also made by Monolithsoft. And while this is an option, I don't think that they're going to try to do this. Even Monolithsoft has said themselves that they're really going to just try to grow the Xenoblade brand. If we take a look at the quote right here from Takahashi, he basically says here, from the point of view of giving Monolithsoft more variety, I would like to do a smaller scale project if the opportunity arose, but right now I think that we should focus on increasing the value of the brand that we have created within the Xenoblade Chronicles Saga. Of course, if we manage to organize ourselves in a way that allows us to do so, I would also like to give a smaller scale project a chance. And so they really want to grow the Xenoblade brand. Of course, Xenoblade 2 is the best-selling Xenoblade game at the moment. Xenoblade 3 is probably going to sell even more than that. So if they really kind of just stop with Xenoblade after this and move on to a new Xeno series or something else, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. Of course, right now, Xenoblade is finally starting to ramp up and a lot of people are getting interested into it. So I definitely do think that the name Xenoblade is going to be staying for a much longer time. And of course, there's a lot of other things that they can still do with it. Like I mentioned earlier, they got all of Xenoblade X, so they can definitely work with that. There's obviously the possibility of smaller spin-offs and other types of games that they could do also. So there's a lot of other options that they can do besides just numbered Xenoblade games that are like these massive RPGs. So I definitely think that they're going to come up with a lot of other creative things to keep the Xenoblade brand going. But at the same time for me, as much as I love the Xenoblade games and I would love to have a Xenoblade 4, a Xenoblade 5 and just keep playing more and more Xenoblade games, I don't want this series to become one of those things where they just keep making more and more games even if they don't really make a lot of sense just for the sake of making more money. If Xenoblade Chronicles 3 really is going to be the perfect conclusion to the trilogy and it wraps everything up nicely, then I definitely do think that they should end everything there, and there's a lot of other things that they can still do with the Xenoblade brand. And trilogies are a very common thing in terms of entertainment. We've got like the Spider-Man trilogy, we've got the Back to the Future trilogy, we've got the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So I do feel like if this really is going to be an awesome trilogy where it ends with Xenoblade 3, it's probably going to be like my favorite trilogy of all time. And I'm definitely going to be replaying all of the games over and over. And it's just going to be something very special to me. But at the same time, I just don't want them to keep milking more and more new games, even if they don't make a lot of sense, and then have like me waiting for like Xenoblade Chronicles 13 in like the year 2054. As my favorite superhero once said, part of the journey is the end, and if this really is the end of these Xenoblade games, then of course it is going to be very sad to see that this is going to be the final big Xenoblade game that wraps everything up, but at the same time, I'm going to be happy that I got to experience all of these and got to be a part of this incredible Xenoblade trilogy. And so yeah, there you go guys, those are my thoughts on the possibility of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 being the ending to the trilogy and what they could do with the future of the Xenoblade brand. If you guys enjoyed this video, then definitely be sure to click that like button and also comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of all of this. How do you guys feel about Xenoblade Chronicles 3? Do you think that it is going to be the ending to the trilogy? What would you like to see for the future of Xenoblade? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. If you're new to this channel, then please be sure to subscribe. I'm definitely going to have some more Xenoblade content in the future, so definitely be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Click on that bell to become a part of the notification squad. Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.